We're joined now by Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader. Thank you so much, Congressman, for being here with us. Leader Jeffries, we just heard Senator Thune there with Ali Vitale say Democrats in the Senate are being browbeaten into submission. Those were his words. What say you?
Well, this is day 38 of the Trump Republican shutdown, and our position as Democrats remain clear. We will sit down with any Republicans, anytime, any place, in order to reopen the government, to find a bipartisan path forward, and to decisively address the Republican health care crisis. The problem with Johnson and Thune and the Republicans right now is that they continue to adopt the my way or the highway approach. And our view has been consistent. We will not support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people, particularly as it relates to the expiring Affordable Care Act tax credits.
We've heard from at least one Republican senator that he's had discussions with his House counterparts. I'm curious, are you aware of any negotiations like that crossing both chambers? And are you involved in any bipartisan talks right now?
I know there are informal conversations that are taking place, but at the leadership level, Donald Trump has not given Mike Johnson permission to actually sit down and have a substantive conversation with Democrats in the House. And unfortunately, until Donald Trump either gets off the sidelines or gives Mike Johnson permission to actually have a meaningful conversation, we're not going to see anything productive emerge from the House of Representatives. And understand that House Republicans have now been on vacation for 6 consecutive weeks, canceled votes for 6 consecutive weeks. And they'd rather just remain on vacation than actually ensure that children in this country are able to put food on the table, and that everyday Americans don't see dramatically increased health care premiums, copays, and deductibles, which we know in some instances will increase by $1,000 or $2,000 per month.
What do you need to see in any potential Senate plan to reopen the government to say, okay, Democrats should back this?
Well, first of all, John Thune needs to stop trying to bluff his way into an agreement. Sit down and have a conversation with Leader Schumer, or let's have a four corners conversation, House, Senate, Democrats, Republicans, along with the administration, to find a bipartisan agreement forward. Now, our view has been that we will evaluate in good faith any bipartisan agreement that emerges from the Senate, as long as it decisively addresses this Republican health care crisis, where we've seen Republicans devastate people this year. Largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health centers closing all across the country because of Republican policies connected to their one big ugly bill. We know that Medicare is facing a $536 billion cut this year if Congress doesn't act by the end of December. And if we don't extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans all across this country are going to be able, not be able to access their health care or see a doctor when they need it because of the unaffordability of health insurance.
So let me try to nail this down. Short of a vote on Obamacare subsidies prior to reopening the government, what else might get Democrats behind a funding bill? Could a promised date to vote on Obamacare subsidies be enough?
Well, listen, at least as it relates to the House of Representatives, I'm not going to speak to the Senate, and the Senate Democrats, of course, are taking the lead there. But in terms of the House of Representatives, this group of extreme MAGA Republicans have voted to rip the Affordable Care Act away from people more than 70 different times in the last 15 years. And so they have zero credibility as it relates to the issue of providing affordable health care to everyday Americans. In
fact, a promise for a vote won't work for you.
I mean, listen, we have to have a real path forward to address the Republican health care crisis. I don't want to negotiate in public, but it has to be a meaningful path forward. And the American people are clearly demanding that happen. The American people clearly want to see us deal with the affordability crisis. We saw that happen all throughout America on Tuesday. That's why Republicans were crushed.
Here's what Speaker Johnson said yesterday about that path forward, or lack thereof.
The House did its job on September 19th. I'm not promising anybody anything. I'm going to let this process play out. I tell you what they wanted I'll tell you what Schumer and Jeffries wanted. In fact, Chuck Schumer said it publicly and decried that Thune and I would not go in a back room with them and make a four corners agreement on Obamacare subsidies. And I said, there's no way.
Response to that?
Well, listen, the states that are going to be most impacted by a failure to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits are Republican-run states. West Virginia, Wyoming, Alaska, Mississippi, and Tennessee. 45% of the people who benefit from the Affordable Care Act tax credits are registered Republicans, 35% Democrats, and 20% independents. This is an American issue. This is not a partisan issue for us. We're fighting to protect the health care of the American people. And, you know, Johnson clearly has zero interest. Now, when they passed their one big ugly bill, they ripped health care away from about 14 million Americans, and they did it so that they could provide massive tax breaks to their billionaire donors, and they made those tax breaks permanent.
Let's talk about this new SNAP lawsuit. President Trump's team appealing, essentially fighting in court to not have to give people their SNAP benefits, which means this crisis is headed back to Congress's lap. Could this accelerate talks?
Well, it's incredible to me that Donald Trump and Republicans have decided to weaponize hunger and starvation by unlawfully, at this point, withholding SNAP benefits from 42 million Americans. That includes 16 million children, 8 million older Americans, and over 1 million veterans who rely on SNAP benefits in order to put food on the table. But this is no surprise when you consider the fact that in their one big ugly bill earlier this year in July, Republicans already enacted the largest cut to SNAP benefits in American history.